Hi everyone, welcome to the Homebirth New South Wales first 2021. We this week are celebrating World Breastfeeding Week, which is really exciting. My name is Rebecca Bell. I am on the Homebirth New South Wales committee. I am in charge of events and fundraising. This is my first time hosting a webinar, so I apologise in advance if I don't know what I'm doing and things don't work very well, but hopefully it will all go smoothly. So I just want to do an acknowledgement of country quickly. So I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the land and waters of New South Wales. So we are so lucky to be joined by some amazing experts in the field tonight who are hopefully going to provide you with some really amazing information. And hopefully you guys will get a lot out of hearing from each of these amazing women. First up, we have Leila Forde, who has been a volunteer breastfeeding counsellor, community educator and trainer with the Australian Breastfeeding Association for 30 years. She breastfed her 2 children and her daughter was born at home. She regularly counsels on the ABA's national helpline and at local ABA group meets. We also have Meg Nagel. So Meg is known as the Milk Meg on social media. So Meg is the mother of 3 breastfed boys, lives with her husband and children in Queensland. She is an international board certified lactation consultant in private practice and works with parents to help them reach their breastfeeding goals. She has a degree in psychology and her prior work was in counselling and sexual health. She was a La Leche, is that right? La Leche
League. Yeah.
La Leche League leader, breastfeeding counsellor for 7 years before becoming an international board certified lactation consultant. Meg is the author of 2 books, including All Tied Up, How to Keep on Boobin' Through a Tongue Tie, and Boobin' All Day, Boobin' All Night, a gentle approach to sleep for breastfeeding families. She also filmed a short documentary, Lactoboobiphobia, based on one of her blog posts, and her website is themilkmeg.com. We also have Alice Meravy, is it Alice? Meravy. So Alice joins us from the Breastfeeding Cooperative. So the Breastfeeding Cooperative Australia is founded by a group of passionate women made up of midwives, pharmacists, counsellors, doulas, nurses, researchers, chemists, international board certified lactation consultants, statisticians, trained breastfeeding peer supporters and health professionals who are all mothers with lived-in experience in breastfeeding. It's a community set up on Facebook, and the community is there to support each other, answer questions, and bounce ideas off, and Alice will give us a really good insight into that shortly. And then all the way over in New Zealand, we have the lovely Ellen Chisholm, and she is PR for Cadenshae Maternity Wear. So Cadenshae are the global leaders in active wear for pregnant and nursing mums, from breastfeeding friendly sports bras, medically endorsed maternity leggings to socks and undies. Cadenshae literally has you covered from head to toe throughout your motherhood journey. So now, World Breastfeeding Week. So it runs from Sunday the 1st and finishes up this Saturday the 7th. The theme for World Breastfeeding Week in 2021 is Protect Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility. And it's about how breastfeeding contributes to the survival, health and well-being of all. The Australian Breastfeeding Association, their key objective this year is to inform the wider public about the positive impact support for mums has on breastfeeding outcomes, and to highlight how essential a village of support is for mums, especially fathers, partners and other carers in achieving breastfeeding success. So I might pop you up on the screen now, Leila, if you would like to get things running.
Okay. Making sure I've got the right PowerPoint up. So if it's the wrong one, let me know.
No, it's perfect.
So hi everybody, it's really fantastic to be here and to be here with you. I do have a little problem because I just don't see where I'm able to move my screen on. So I'm just not sure what's quite happened with the PowerPoint, because I have to be able to see where to put the button, on. So I'll just see what I can do. In the meantime, I've just mentioned also that we're letting you know partly about the Australian Breastfeeding Association and who we are. We're a membership organisation. And so as well as having trained qualified breastfeeding counsellors and community educators to help, we've also got ourselves as mothers supporting each other. And that's one of the main focuses of the association. So I'll just have another little try with this, and hopefully I'll be able to see the PowerPoint properly this time. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not actually, I know you can see the screen there, but I can't actually see how to move it on to the next point.
Can you press enter? Will enter work?
Good thinking. No, it doesn't work.
No.
Oh, sorry about this. What I'll do is I'll just go out and I'll just do something a little bit different to see if that helps. That's the trouble with technology, isn't it? We think it's all going to be so easy, and it is actually not. So let's see what happens.
Can you not just use the arrow button on your keyboard?
I'll try that. That's a really good suggestion, whoever suggested that. Thank you. Is that showing up now? Is it sharing?
You might just need to share it again, Leila.
No. Okay, let's see if it works. No. Okay, here we go. I think this might work better. Huh?
Yeah, we can see it. Yep, that's working.
Oh, great. Fantastic. I'm sorry about that. It's not happened to me before. So one of the things is that we're letting you all know about the association, because it's something that sometimes mothers say to me that they wish they'd actually heard about us before, because it's a resource that's available for you all. And I think sometimes because the organisation's been going for quite a number of years now, it's just assumed that everybody knows about the Australian Breastfeeding Association. It was established in 1964 by Mary Patton, who along with 5 other mothers wasn't happy with what was happening at that time. And that was partly due to the big push to promote formula in Australia and other countries as well. And the rates of breastfeeding really dropped. So I find it really inspiring that such a small group of women was able to establish an organisation that's still here all these years later, with so many women helped and so many women still involved. So there's things that you may already have heard about. We have a 1-800 number, a national helpline staffed by volunteer breastfeeding counsellors who can answer your questions. And it's 24/7. So it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and available at night for urgent calls. We are volunteers in our home, so urgent calls are very welcome. If it can wait till the morning, that's appreciated. We've also got a relatively new, in the last, just started just before COVID happened, so it was good timing, I think, a Facebook group called Breastfeeding with ABA, and you can join that group. It's a private group, so you have to ask to join, and that's also a place that you can ask some questions. We actually also like you to know that there's quite a few things that can help you with your breastfeeding journey, and that is that the Australian Federal Health Department has some guidelines based on the World Health Organization guidelines, and that's that it's suggested to not have any other food or drinks before 6 months, about 6 months, and continued breastfeeding with the gradual introduction of solids. And one of the reasons why it's useful to know that is that for many years, people have been given information, you know, there's traditions that grow up, or maybe somebody's relative says, oh, when you were little, we used to do this or that. But now we do know that breastfeeding is the main food for babies. In fact, for the first 12 months, but certainly it's the food that they're really depending on for 6 months for their health and development. And so if you already know this right from the start, it's going to give you more confidence with what you're doing. You can feel confident in your bodies to be able to produce the nourishment that your babies need. Many of you, because you're the Homebirth Association, and I imagine that many of you are planning on a home birth, and you're learning how your bodies can help your baby to grow and develop in utero, and that you're learning how to trust your bodies also to be able to give birth. And you can trust your bodies too for the breastfeeding part of it. Our bodies are amazing, and the last stage of being pregnant and giving birth is in fact breastfeeding, and it's for that reason that our governments, all of the various state governments and the federal governments have guidelines that breastfeeding women shouldn't be discriminated against, because it's that last stage of pregnancy. So you can trust your body, but breastfeeding is a learned skill as well as an instinctive skill. Babies have an instinct and mothers have an instinct to breastfeed, but it's also something that traditionally was handed down, you know, from grandma to their daughters, and from aunts. People in the community knew how to breastfeed, and there were wise women, midwives, who would assist the establishment of breastfeeding. So these days we need, some of that's been lost, and so we need organisations like the Australian Breastfeeding Association to help give us back that information that used to be just out there in the community. So breastfeed is the normal food for babies, and breastfeeding's in our biology. It increases your baby's resistance to infection and disease. There's actually less respiratory and ear infections. If the baby's receiving breast milk, there's less gastro, there's fewer SIDS cases if babies are breastfed. And I guess, you know, we've really got respiratory things at the top of our mind these days, what with COVID and so on. I'm in Sydney, so I'm in lockdown at the moment. And so it's really great for us to be aware that breastfeeding does increase babies' resistance, especially to things like respiratory illnesses and gastric illnesses. And for mothers, it's a very valuable thing as well, because breastfeeding is convenient and it's cheap and it's fresh and available. It's not necessarily convenient right from the start. I don't want to give the wrong impression that things just are automatically necessarily just going to go instinctively well right from the beginning. They can do, but it's also a learned skill. Your breasts are learning what to do, your baby's learning what to do, and you're learning what to do. And so it's something that does take some weeks to establish, and that's normal. So the challenges that you're likely to meet up with are challenges that will, generally speaking, happen in the first, say, 6 weeks or so. And with support and information, you will be able to, generally speaking, overcome most of those challenges. And that's where we come in as an organisation, because we're available, as I mentioned before, for you to ring. We also have live chat on our website for you to communicate with people for your questions if you're not wanting to ring. And I'll talk a little bit more about our local groups as well later. And of course, for questions later on too, it's not just the first few weeks. I'm on the helpline regularly, and mothers will ring about introducing solids or about weaning, etc. So other things that it can help with is satisfying and soothing your baby, helps your uterus to return to normal size and reduces the risk of various cancers. It's also something that we know helps create a bond between mothers and babies. It doesn't mean that you can't have a bond if you don't breastfeed, but just the mere fact that your baby is snuggled up skin to skin for quite a lot of the time in itself assists with creating that bond. And mothers can find it very rewarding once breastfeeding is established, and it can be a very positive experience. So sometimes Rebecca mentioned that we're useful just to know a little bit about milk supply. Rebecca, let me know if time's up, because I don't have a
you're fine.
But the more breastfeeds you give and the more milk is removed, the more milk gets made. It's just like an amazing thing, our body, that the more that we take out of it, the more actually gets reproduced. So the breasts are never completely empty. Well-drained breasts make milk faster, and in fact, well-drained breasts have fattier milk. So sometimes mothers worry that their breasts are empty-ish. Like I said, they can never be truly empty, but they might be on the empty-ish side. And I think it's not going to be satisfying for their baby. But in actual fact, that milk is actually fattier and just as satisfying as milk at any other time in the 24 hours of the day. Mothers also commonly ring to find out what's normal. There's so much conflicting information from friends, from relatives, sometimes, unfortunately, from health professionals, things that you might read on the internet and so on. And so it can be something of a shock to find out that babies can, in fact, feed 8 to 12 times or more per 24 hours, and that's normal. Their little tummies are tiny, and some of you will have been already having classes with your midwives, and they may have explained that the little newborn's tummy is about the size of a small marble. I like to think of it about the size of the top of my thumb as a bit of a guideline. And so naturally, they don't need very much in those early days. Just the colostrum is fine. And milk comes in, and they'll feed a lot more frequently. But again, their tummies are very small, maybe about the size, we'd say, of like a 10-cent piece in a sphere. And then their tummies are still growing. So that's why they need to feed very frequently in these early stages. They'll generally have cluster feeding at certain times and fussy periods. And over the first 4 to 6 weeks, your milk supply will be building up. and generally between 4 and 6 weeks, it's established. So it does take a little bit of time, but knowing that can also give you confidence that, yes, you're getting closer to that stage. A common question also is about sore nipples and sore breasts. And that's quite a big topic. There's not really time to go into all that right now. But that's also the sort of question that mothers will ring about, and we can help via our national helpline, our live chat, which is accessed via our website, the Australian Breastfeeding Association website. Live chat's available every evening between 8 and 10. So it would in fact be available now if you're calling or entering into it. And currently on Mondays and Fridays from midday to 2 p.m. The daytime ones change according to demand. And again, at your local group meetups. Here where I am, because we're in lockdown, we've had to stop our in-person group meetings for the time being, but we've replaced them by meetings via Zoom. And you're very welcome to come from anywhere in Australia. You can go onto our website and go into the connection tab, and there'll be a link to a national calendar there where you can see actually all the details of online meetings that are happening across Australia. And so even though we currently in Sydney can't have in-person ones, it's great to know that you can get in touch with local groups via Zoom in many places. A couple of other things that might be something that interests you is that we've got a podcast, and that's got a great range of topics to tap into at any stage, and they're doing more all the time. And there's also our Mum to Mum app, which our members of the Australian Breastfeeding Association get premium content to that. So a lot of our things are available whether you're a member of the Australian Breastfeeding Association or not, like the helpline, for example, live chat. And then the podcasts are readily available. Other things are also a benefit of membership. And for example, a magazine Essence, which you can see front cover of here, comes out 4 times a year. We have classes for pregnant couples, especially now with COVID issues. We've introduced classes online, and they're readily available. You know, if you go in to look those up, you'll see that there's quite a lot of opportunities for those classes. Some areas where you might not be restricted by lockdowns at the moment might also be running face-to-face in-person classes as well, and they're for pregnant couples. Got our local group meetings. They're a benefit of membership. You're really warmly welcome to come along to a couple before deciding whether or not to join the Australian Breastfeeding Association. We've got breast pump hire in many areas with discounts for members. The magazine I've mentioned, and the app, and the free book, Breastfeeding Naturally, which is, I've got a photo there in the corner there, and that's a really great resource. It's great to get
You just on mute, Beck. You're on mute.
Yeah. Did that just cancel the whole meeting?
No, everyone else is still in here. It just, I think Leila got,
Got cut out.
yes.
So sorry, everyone. I did not know what happened there.
Or lowering risks of certain types of breast cancer, for instance, ovarian cancer. And something else, though, that's not really often spoken about with breastfeeding is how it's actually mothering or parenting through breastfeeding. So it's not just about all of the health benefits, but it's about what it actually means to be mothering through breastfeeding. So it meets so many of our child's needs, not only when they're babies, but as they grow as well into toddlerhood and young childhood as well. There's so many different reasons why a child will ask to breastfeed that have nothing to do with hunger or thirst. And every reason that a child is asking or needing to breastfeed is just as important as another. So it really is about so much more than just the milk that we're giving them.
I think there's one of Meg's memes that's, I've got 99 problems and breastfeeding solved at least 86 of them.
That is very true. Very true.
And
I stand behind that.
Yeah. and yeah, that certainly was my experience with my own children. And it's very much a part of our philosophy in terms of what we try and support women within the Breastfeeding Cooperative is finding ways to align themselves with, we do get this constant bombardment of messaging that breast is best. And what we're realizing is it's actually a really unhelpful message to be sending to mothers, because we tell them that breastfeeding is wonderful. And then when women say, I'm having trouble, that's when we say, oh, it's actually not that important. And so we've got health professionals and support systems that are completely undermining this message that breast is best. So we've sort of found that best practice now is to try and share the message that informed is best. When you have all of the information to make a choice about how you're feeding your baby, you are in control of that. You're in control of the decision-making process, and that is so much more important in terms of long-term maternal health and the impacts that that has on infant mental health as well.
And so, Alice, do you maybe want to give a bit of an overview of what the Breastfeeding Collective is about and how you're supporting women?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as you can probably guess from some of the descriptions of the women in the group, a lot of us have a bit of a science background. Mine is from sort of more of a mental health perspective, but we really do have everything from someone with a PhD in chemistry to a statistician. What we share is a passion for breastfeeding, and we have all come together. We have all met through peer breastfeeding support. We're from all around Australia and New Zealand, and we wanted to create a cooperative space that was a very informal online shared space with the sort of curation and moderation of a team of really passionate women who do have knowledge in the breastfeeding space. We really respect the work that the ABA does and the work that women put in to receive the qualifications to become breastfeeding counsellors. And we think it's incredible. And personally, I'm, I was doing some research recently and was seeing some fantastic literature published by the ABA. And that's something that I don't think Leila spoke about very much, that the ABA actually contributes so much to research around breastfeeding in Australia as well. but what we are doing is sort of taking it back right down to that community level. It's much more like bumping into a friend down the street than it is going to someone who, with qualifications, and bringing it into that Facebook space, a space that we are already in. When you're scrolling through your news feed and you are seeing all of these beautiful positive messages, women asking for support, women sharing their success stories, women talking about everything from sleep and how breastfeeding does, or in most cases actually doesn't really impact sleep. There's quite a few studies that show that women that exclusively breastfeed actually get more sleep on average than women who bottle feed, despite so many myths abounding about formula-fed babies sleeping for longer periods. And sharing all of those insecurities and vulnerabilities in this really safe, beautiful, collective space that we've created.
Amazing. Meg, would you like to give everyone an overview of what you do and how you're supporting breastfeeding women and some of the options available to them through your website and socials?
Yeah, so I started helping with breastfeeding when I'm from America, obviously, in case you haven't noticed. When I had my first, who's now 18 years old, which I can't actually believe it every time I say it. When I had him, I was in uni here in Australia, and quickly after I had him, I said to my husband, I have to go home and be with my family, because we were very young and had no idea what we were doing. So we moved to the States for 5 years. And when I was there, I became a La Leche League leader, which is the same structure as the Australian Breastfeeding Association. They're just international. So they're all over the world. Same concept of that volunteer mom-to-mom support. And I actually did that for 8 years before becoming a board certified lactation consultant. So I do that now in private practice. And that mom-to-mom support is really, there's just nothing like it. I'll say that straight up, that the volunteer mom-to-mom support and the stuff that the Australian Breastfeeding Association does and La Leche League does as well is just next level, just wonderful support for people, especially when you are in these difficult times that we're in now, lots of financial stressors. So I'm really glad that that's there. With lactation consultant, where you're being in private practice, that's actually where you do have to pay for the service. So that's different than doing like the volunteer sort of mom-to-mom support. I offer these consultations virtually, over the phone, also in person. Thankfully, I am considered an essential worker, so I can still do in person during these hard times. But just for really oral assessments. So if someone thinks that their baby has a tongue tie, or I think that it might sound like it's tie related, then I'll do an oral assessment. But it is really good that we have both options of having that volunteer mom-to-mom support, and also the lactation consultants. We're in private practice and also in hospitals, some GP clinics or baby clinics as well. So we're sort of all over the place. It just depends on where you live as to where you might find us.
Cool. And so if anybody wants to give Meg's socials a follow, she is very active on there with all sorts of advice and cool memes. And
Meg has the best names.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to hear that. It is actually quite challenging sometimes being on social media all of the time. And I think for families as well, it's very difficult trying to find really good information. And I just want to say, I think my biggest advice to people when you're trying to find breastfeeding support, whether that's through the ABA or through a private lactation consultant, that it doesn't matter who is saying this advice to you. If it's not feeling right to you, if it's not working for your family, get a second opinion. There's going to be different things that work for different people. There's going to be, different possible solutions to what's going on for you. So you're going to get conflicting information. No doubt you're going to get conflicting information, whether it's from different lactation consultants, different ABA counselors, different websites you see, the books that you read. That's unavoidable. So it really just comes down to what is actually feeling right for you and what your instincts are telling you. And you really just have to try to trust that along the way.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that the ABA can offer, as well as some of the online spaces like the Breastfeeding Cooperative, is I certainly know that when I was starting out in my journey, I had a child in special care. And so with 3 nurses on each shift, I was getting so many different pieces of advice. And I spoke to an ABA counsellor, and they helped me work through why the advice might be conflicting. And that was such a valuable thing. They didn't tell me what was right or wrong, but just helped me to see what the different strengths and disadvantages could be to going down different pathways.
I'm really glad you said that, because that is something that for anyone who's helping with breastfeeding, or even if you don't help people with breastfeeding, but you're a friend and you're trying to work through that different information, actually just explaining, it doesn't take that much time just to say to someone, you know what, it might not be that something's right or something's wrong. It's more, what's the basic physiology of how our bodies work? What's your breastfeeding goal? And what's actually going to work for you to help you meet your own goals as well? So there's different factors that are involved, not only just sometimes it works for people, sometimes it doesn't. And that sort of explanation can be really, really helpful for families.
And thank you, Alice, for mentioning the breastfeeding help that you got from ABA early on. And one of the things that we really try to do is to provide a range of suggestions. We don't want to tell people what to do. We don't want to, say you must do this or you have to do that. We try to provide a range of suggestions that are going to allow mothers and families to make their own decisions about what's going to work for them. And so that's really one of our core values, actually. So appreciate that you mentioned that too, Alice. And great point, Meg. Yes, knowing something about the physiology and how things work can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
It's such a vulnerable time when you are in that newborn stage, and it's so deeply challenging to be trying to figure out who to trust and which advice to take, particularly when it's coming from people that we respect, or people that are just intrusive in our lives, like mothers-in-law. And so it can be so difficult to refuse advice and to not know really what's going on or why people might be suggesting things.
Yeah, definitely. I just put everyone's handles in the chat. So if you want to follow anyone on Facebook or Instagram, you can just copy and paste those for now or once the webinar is finished. Ellen, would you like to talk a bit about Cadenshae and what the brand represents and how it was started and how you're supporting breastfeeding women? Oh, mute. Just in the bottom corner.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. First of all, thank you, Rebecca, for having Cadenshae on board this webinar where we were honoured to be asked to come on here. If I start to talk gibberish, it's because I've got baby brain. I'm 32 weeks pregnant and it's 11:15 over here in New Zealand, so it's a bit late for me. But anyway, I'll try my best. So Cadenshae, we were established in 2015. The founder, Nikki Clark, before she established Cadenshae, was a highly sought after personal trainer, and she had her first baby And soon after having her baby, she decided to go back to the gym and do, just do a gentle workout. And as she was doing the workout, obviously, as babies do, her daughter got a little bit fussy. And so Nikki went to go and feed her, and she was just wearing a normal sports bra. And she found it incredibly difficult to kind of lift her sports bra up and get her breast out in front of everyone. And it was just a bit of a mess. And she just thought there must be a better way. There must be something out there, sports bras that are breastfeeding friendly. So she went home, she had a Google, noticed that there really wasn't much out there, very, very little. What was out there was pretty ugly and cheap and just not very flattering. So she decided, she found this little niche market. She had no fashion industry experience, but she was just kind of angered that there was nothing out there for mums, active mums, or just any mums who want to breastfeed and get out and about and do things. So she just decided to make her own sports bra, maternity sports bra, and it just grew and grew from there. And now in 2021, we are the global leaders in active wear for pregnant women as well as nursing mums, and we make all sorts of gear now. We've got about 10 different sports bras for different sizes. We've got hoodies like this one, for example. I'm just going to be a bit of a model. Really discreet zips, so women can, they go to the gym or go for a walk or whatever, they can get their breasts out, and then they've got a Cadenshae tank that they can wear. And then this is one of our bras that just clips down, and so I won't go all the way, nobody needs to see that, but yeah, you can see how it would work. You put your baby there and you've still got all your gear on, and it's really stylish gear, good quality, but it's also just functional and practical gear. So we have all the stuff to make breastfeeding easy and discreet as well. And as well as the top half of things, I'll just show you as well, we also do compression pants, maternity leggings. So you can when you're pregnant, you can wear the belly up like this, or if you prefer to have it down, you can just roll it down. And then lots of mums, once they've had their baby, they just obviously roll it down. Up the first few weeks after they have their baby, they keep it up just for extra support. Our maternity leggings and our bras have been medically endorsed by lactation consultants and doctors and physiotherapists in New Zealand and across the world as well. So our gear just really, initially it was about making practical gear for breastfeeding mothers to wear when they were out and about or working out or whatever. But what we represent, it's kind of grown from there. Over the past few years, it's grown into we are a company that really wants to empower women, empower mothers to be everything they want to be. We sponsored an amazing US athlete called Alicia Montano. She was a 3-time bronze medalist at the Olympics, and I think she's a 6-time 800-meter champion in the US. And she got pregnant, and it's a long story. She got pregnant, and then Nike and Asics kind of dropped her because of that. And she just started this campaign along with Alison Felix, who's the most decorated Olympian of all time, to back mothers and support mothers who are professional athletes. Let them go and have their babies, let them come back, support them. So we are kind of on board that bandwagon, not just for professional athletes, but for all women. You don't have to choose between your career and being a mum. You can be both if you've got the right support behind you and the right kind of support throughout the whole village, your family as well as your workplace, as well as obviously your partner and all those sorts of things. So we're really a brand that's all about empowering mothers to be the best they can be in whatever field they choose to be in. In terms of helping mothers breastfeed, obviously we provide the gear for them to be able to do that practically, but we're also supporting a lot of organizations throughout the world who do great work with breastfeeding mothers, like, I'm going to stuff it up as well, La Leche, leagues. We've worked with them closely in America and Canada. I think I have tried to get into Australia, but it hasn't happened there. Other organisations like Mothers Matter, Plunkett, which isn't in Australia, but it's a organisation in New Zealand that once a woman has their baby, after the first 6 weeks with their midwife, they automatically get switched over to Plunkett, and all of our babies are looked after through this Plunkett organisation until they're 5. So just making sure that, you know, they've got all their immunisations, that they're well fed, that they're looked after, all those sorts of things. So we work and support organisations like Plunkett. So we do the best we can. You know, we're not a massive company, but we do what we can to help mothers be empowered, and also just help women to get the most support they need during this really vulnerable time in their lives. I've had 2 babies and I'm about to have another, so I very much know how important those, especially those first kind of 3 months after you have a baby, how much support you do need. And often you don't even know what kind of support you need until you kind of hear it. You don't know what you don't know until you learn from these amazing organisations like the ABA. Obviously, we don't have that in New Zealand, but similar organisations. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, we do have a 15% discount code that we've given especially to Homebirth New South Wales. It's just Homebirth CS 15%. I can write it in the little chat. And that will, Homebirth CS 15%. And that will end August 31st, midnight, August 31st. So it's valid for about a month. Where anyone who uses that code will get 15% off all of our gear, apart from sale items. So hopefully that's another little way that we can help you guys and the people that you deal with locally to feel supported and stylish in their active wear. And the other thing as well that our gear kind of naturally morphs from, you know, exercise is so important for your mental health. And when you feel good in your gear and you feel like you look good and you've got something practical, you're more likely to get out and about and go and do something, go for a gentle walk, or even just go to the mall for a coffee. We all know how claustrophobic it can be when you're stuck breastfeeding your child for what seems like hours upon hours a day in the first wee while. So yeah, our gear allows women to feel confident in getting out and about and doing kind of what they used to do, but just with the baby in tow this time. So yeah, we're all about empowering women, helping with mental health, and obviously just the practical side of things with our gear. So hopefully that answers your questions. I think I might have been a little bit gibberish.
No, that's great. Thank you, Ellen. That was a really good insight. We're going to open up. We've got a few minutes left. So if anyone would like to pop some questions in the chat, we can, you can either specify who you'd like to ask, or we can sort of go around. Ellen, one I did see come up, Jess has asked if there's going to be any like bigger sizes. She said that currently most of the items only got to a size 22.
Size 22. Well, I know that we've with some of our gear, I'm just going to look on the website now, that we've gone up to a triple XL. It's not in everything, but yes, that is definitely something we are looking at. I can't remember off the top of my head. It might be the classic leggings, which I was just wearing before. They've gone up to a triple X. So the kind of the big sellers are going into the bigger sizes. But yes, absolutely, that we do want to cater for every type of mum. In terms of the bras, we are actually from what we understand, the only organisation that has a bra for cup sizes up to J, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Yeah, which is the Luxe bra. So that's kind of our biggest bra. And we also have the Radiance bra, which that goes up to J cup as well. So we are really wanting to focus on larger sizes. We haven't got it in all of our gear, but that is something that we want to look at. I can't give you a timeline on that though. That's not my field, but I could find out for you.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hey, Alice, do you want to answer this first one from Jamie? What do you find is the most asked question or biggest problem breastfeeding mamas are having?
I would say that probably the most consistent thing that comes up is mums worrying about their supply, because I think it was Leila was speaking in her presentation about that trust that you have in your body as you're growing the baby. And we trust our bodies to figure out which cells make an ear and which cells make a toenail, and not put them in the wrong place. And sort of extending that trust to our bodies to birth our babies and then to feed our babies can be really challenging. And particularly given that it is not something that you can quantify, and we're really wanting to do the best for our babies. A lot of mums see things like lactation cookies. When I saw that Woolworths had their own brand of lactation cookies, I decided that the world had gone mad. But there is an entire industry preying on women and trying to convince them that they have supply issues when they really don't. If you feed your baby on demand and your baby is draining well, has a consistent, strong nappy output, then you can, and is happy and alert, those are the things that we're looking at to know that your baby is being well fed.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, can somebody please explain what exactly happens in mum's body around that 4 to 6 week mark when prolactin levels regulate? And is it possible to increase milk supply post 6 weeks? Meg, Leila, you want to?
I'm happy to have a go. Did Meg want to have a go? I don't know.
I don't mind.
Leila,
If you want to take it, Leila, it's all yours.
We probably can both do it, really. So breast milk is reproduced on the basis that the more milk is removed, the more milk is made. Prolactin's an important hormone to get things going. I call it the sort of the production hormone. It's like getting the factory started in those early weeks and getting things going. But at the same time, the breasts are also responding to the fact that a certain amount of milk is being made and removed, and reproduced. So there's kind of two things going on. And as time goes on, that regulation by the removal of milk gets more important and prolactin becomes less important. So yes, you can increase the milk supply after 6 weeks by removing more milk. Usually it's the easiest way to do that is to get the baby to feed a bit more often, or offer a few more feeds. But it does depend on the situation. There may be special circumstances. And so the main idea is to remove more milk more frequently.
Great. Ellen, one thing that you asked to speak about was the idea of harvesting colostrum in pregnancy. So Meg, maybe you could give some input on the importance of that, or whether you think it's necessary.
Yeah, sure. So with colostrum, and they have done research on this, that it is, considered safe to express some colostrum in those final few weeks of your pregnancy. There are certain situations where it would be a really good idea to do that. So for instance, someone who has gestational diabetes, or even any sort of diabetes, of course, during pregnancy, type 1, type 2, or gestational diabetes, where there might be some blood sugar issues where you would need to be giving some extra milk for your baby. If there's any sort of circumstance where you would need to be supplementing your baby in those early days, and you are finding it quite hard to pump enough colostrum to give to your baby, it is a really great alternative to have some of your expressed milk that you've been able to express before your baby was born to be able to give. So it's definitely something that you can do if you have any concerns about your supply, in particular if you had previous experience with some supply concerns, then it might give you some peace of mind to know that you have that expressed milk there. And just one other thing that I would add in general about low supply is just make sure that if you are experiencing low supply, that whoever is helping you is actually trying to get to the bottom of why you have low supply. Oftentimes people will be told just to breastfeed, pump, and top up with the express breast milk, but that may not actually be appropriate for your situation. So it's really important to seek help from someone who's going to give you the best possible plan for you and figure out why you're experiencing low supply or why your baby's not getting enough milk.
Yeah.
And I'd add to that if anyone tells you that your baby doesn't have a tongue tie, if they haven't actually put gloves on and put their fingers in your baby's mouth and had to feel around and done a full oral function assessment, then they don't know what they're talking about. There are a lot of providers out there who will, with uttermost confidence, inform you that your baby definitely doesn't have a lip or a tongue tie. But there are incredibly skilled, qualified people like Meg who are actually going to assess not just a quick look, but actually how the tongue and the mouth are functioning, and see whether that is impacting on how the baby is draining the breast. I was one of the people that Meg mentioned that I had a premature baby. And so with my second, because he was in special care and I struggled to make enough. And I see one of the other questions is about the success of getting off top-ups. It is possible, but you do really need to be working with someone skilled. I will always recommend an IBCLC to help you with a realistic plan. But it definitely is possible. I worked so hard to breastfeed, I ended up doing it for 4 years because I fought for it. But yeah, with my second child, I then stored quite a bit of colostrum before her birth, and then ended up donating it after she was born and didn't need it. So that's another possibility.
That's lovely. Okay, well, we have reached 9 o'clock, so we might wrap up. I would like to give a huge thank you to all of our amazing speakers tonight. You have provided some great insight. I really hope that everybody that joined got some value out of it. As I've put all of the tags in the chat, but we'll post them on our Homebirth New South Wales page as well. So if you want to start following any of these organisations and getting support, they are all brilliant places to go. So thank you. Have a lovely evening, and we hope to see you at one of our future webinars.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.